let's talk a little bit about what's going on with Jeffrey Epstein. I don't talk about this too much on my show on the Majority Report because it's only politics adjacent. Now, of course, it was a big deal when Donald Trump had his labor secretary was the prosecutor that gave Jeffrey Epstein a sweetheart deal. We also know that, and we don't know the depth of the relationships that Jeffrey Epstein had with major politicians, but we know that he was friends with Donald Trump. We know that he was friends in some way with Bill Clinton. These are obviously very powerful men. And we know that he has been accused, or I should say that some of his accusers have mentioned people like George Mitchell and others, Democrats, obviously some Republicans. I mean, it doesn't matter. But then he dies of a suicide, which I know it's pretty extraordinary. I know you've been following this. Like, what do you make of this?
It was honestly, it was quite a shock and also not surprising at all to wake up to that news on Saturday morning. But here's the thing. Obviously, there were conspiracy theories flying all around. Some of them totally 100% plausible. Others that would make for a good movie. But yeah, let's not get into those. But no, I mean, look, Epstein. The conditions had to have been made right for Epstein to kill himself. He was allegedly on suicide watch, but they had just taken him off. As the week progressed, we had stories from the medical examiner, for one, saying, I can't tell you how he killed himself. Well, that only made people go a little bit crazier with the conspiracy theories. We had the former mobster that worked for John Gotti Sr., who said that he saw Attorney General William Barr go into that prison shortly before the first time Epstein was found bloodied and bruised up. So that story kind of took on a whole new life of its own. Maybe it's accurate, maybe it's not. I don't know how much stock we put into a former mobster.
Right. Not much, but go ahead.
But overall, the thing is, Epstein, I do believe he killed himself. And I think it was because this time he knew there was nothing he was going to do to get himself out of this. The charges, I think he was looking at more than 40 years based on the charges against him. The trafficking is obviously a lot worse than just having sex with a minor. So he knew there was no deal he could cut, no amount of names he could give up that was going to save him from spending the rest of his life in jail. So at that point, probably figures, why not just make this happen? And again, in order to do that,
stage left.
Yeah, but the conditions had to be right. And so that's why, and this is something you and I had to briefly discuss off the air, it does make sense that something had to have happened, some kind of arrangement possibly between him and the guards or his estate and the guard, whoever it was, to allow him the opportunity to do it. And as the story unfolded throughout the week, it really pointed even more towards that. The guards conveniently all fell asleep at the same time. They took him off suicide watch a day or two prior to this. It all was just way too convenient for him.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is that I think you're right. I mean, and let's be clear here. There are a lot of people who commit suicide in jails and in prisons. In this instance, there was a lot of coincidences that allowed for him to be alone. At the MCC, my understanding is that this is the Metropolitan Corrections Center. People in his situation generally aren't in jail alone. They have prison cellmates, I should say, and he lost his on Friday and didn't get a new one. There's a lot of things that pointed to these sort of, even if you were looking at it without jaded eyes, that look like a tremendous amount of incompetence. But here's the thing. Like I say, there's a lot of people who die by suicide in jails. But I would imagine the number of those that do it, that successfully commit suicide, haven't just come off like literally days before suicide watch, A. B, have not been in the news for weeks and months. as having possibly information that implicates some of the most important men in our country, right? Like there is incompetence. There is horrors in jail. We need criminal justice reform. We need to really roll back our carceral state, et cetera, et cetera. But the bottom line is, like, how are we to believe that no one had a fire lit underneath them to make sure that this guy did not kill himself? I mean, like, surely even those rookies or, part-timers or whoever they were who were responsible for watching him, surely they must have known, like, hey, this is a pretty serious case. This isn't just like, this is one that's going to make the papers. I could get in big trouble here. That's why I think there's such skepticism with people. And I agree with you. I think it's a suicide. I think that there was something must have happened for all these things to be sort of so aligned that he could commit suicide in light of the fact that there would have been an awareness like this is somebody we really need to watch. I mean, I find that hard to believe. But then the question is will there be justice? Will who's getting off? And will they be able to get off? I mean, like, who knows who's implicated in this? Bill Richardson, Mitchell's name has been bandied about. Donald Trump obviously met his wife through Jeffrey Epstein.
What's really interesting to me now, bringing up Trump and all this, is the fact that the Republicans, the conservatives, all over social media for the last month or so, ever since Epstein got arrested, said, oh, it's Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton's going down for this. And meanwhile, you had people on the left saying, look, if Bill Clinton did do any of the things Epstein is accused of doing, then heck yeah, take him down. We don't want him on our side. Same thing with any other Democrats. But Republicans never actually stopped to be like, well, wait a minute. Yeah, okay, I guess it is bad that Trump got there. They always wanted to deflect it back to Clinton. And the left was owning it, saying, listen, if he did it, this is awful. We don't want any part of him. Will you say the same about Trump? And they never would. And the only thing Bill Clinton has been accused of doing is flying on the jet and lying about how many times he was on the jet. Let's be honest about that. But you've got lots of pictures of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. Donald Trump himself is actually named in one of the lawsuits by one of Epstein's victims.
Yep.
Yes, Trump has been accused of engaging in the behavior, and yet most of the coverage on this has centered around Bill Clinton and these other people, when really the president is right there, quite literally, in the court filings. And that's why this suicide, Epstein took the names with him in his brain to the grave. But there are documents, according to Miami Herald, hundreds of thousands of them still that will be released. There are CDs of photographs. There are other witnesses. And plus, most importantly, there is the word of the victims. And those are the people we got to listen to. Right.
And I should just say that when I say that that Epstein introduced Trump to Melania, that's according to Epstein. I mean, maybe, I don't know that Trump acknowledges that, but that's a weird thing to say if you don't have the receipts on something like that. It's a weird thing to go around and talk about. But all right, with that said, we got to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Ring of Fire Radio. I'm Sam Seder. We'll be right back with Farron Cousins for one more segment.